Hey everybody, it's Manny from Trouble Forge. So I'm bringing you another how we throw together a meal from what we have stored video. Typically, if you follow us for a while, you know that Zad does like 95% of our cooking. I pretty much do all the like stocking and storing and canning and freezing and freeze drying and all that kind of stuff. And Zad does most of our daily meals. We usually do breakfast and dinner. We don't typically do lunch, like we might just grab a snack or something. So Zad is working on dinner. We typically eat dinner pretty late because we are usually doing 100 other things during the day. So it's actually only 7:05, which is pretty darn early for us for dinner. But the seasons are changing. You know, it's getting dark now around 6:45. It's like almost mid-October. So I guess we do tend to eat a little bit earlier in the winter than we do in the summertime. So Zad pulled out some deer steaks from the freezer. No, deer... Tenderloins. Not just steaks. Tenderloins from the freezer. Thawed those. We have some onions in storage that are in the pantry. I literally just have those in a cardboard box in the pantry for now. I'd love to transition them to, I don't know if I have any sitting around. Oh, like this. I have these black crates like this. I'd love to transition them into those. I have a ton of those black crates that we picked up at the produce auction for super cheap. So I'd love to put like my acorn squash and my onions and potatoes and things like that. When I finally get to reorganizing the pantry, which might be this week, I got through our last soap sale, and I feel like I'm on my way to caught up, which is hilarious. I never feel caught up. But I'd love to get that kind of stuff in there. But for now, my onions are living in a cardboard box in the pantry and they're fine. So Zad got those cut up. The peels are gonna go to the chickens. I'm sure someone's gonna say, you can't feed onions to chickens. You can. If they don't want them, they won't eat them. If you're not comfortable feeding your onions to your chickens, or you don't have chickens or hogs or whatever, you can feed your peels to your compost. You can put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in your freezer. And then when you go to make broth next time, you can throw them in your broth. You could use it to make vegetable broth. You could add them as flavoring into chicken or turkey or beef or whatever kind of broth. So there should be no reason that any of your onion at all needs to go to waste. So Zad is also peeling some garlic. This is garlic that we grew last year. It really probably needed used up before now, but it's fine. Some of them have a little bit of green in the middle. Some of them have a little green in the middle where they were starting to try to regrow, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. So he's peeling those. Again, those are going in the pile to go to the chickens. Garlic is also something that you could throw into your broth if you want to put your peels in there. I've mentioned this before, like when we smoked our chickens and our turkeys, I could have, like if in the freezer I had a gallon bag of like celery tops and onion peels and garlic peels and things like that, you could throw those into your broth so there should be no waste. So just because you don't have chickens or pigs or whatever, if you do like a counter composter or you have a small compost bin, you can certainly feed it to that, or like things like this is perfect for broth. So as usual, we have a, you know, like two quart jars of bacon grease on the counter. So Zad's got some bacon grease in our favorite cast iron skillet, which is from Lancaster Cast Iron. I'll link that in the description. As I've mentioned before, we have tons of cast iron skillets, probably close to 40 at least, and it is by far our favorite. We have like one of every brand, I feel like, and this one is by far the best skillet that we've ever had. My brother got it for us a couple years ago, and it's been our favorite. So he's just putting the onions into the bacon grease, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
So we got the broccoli steaming, we got the caramelized onions sitting back there getting all ooey and gooey. I got the cast iron, flat iron here that I'm going to put the tenderloin steaks onto and get them seared up. And then probably pop them in the oven for just a little bit of time. Okay, so this is just kind of a leftover pantry meal. Just going with things that are already open, not opening up things that are sealed. These are some leftover cornflakes that we don't typically have because it's not something we keep on hand. But Bud was doing some type of baking thing where he needed it, and so therefore we have it. So Jamie is in the process of smacking them up because we're going to use them like breadcrumbs. So I just put the cornflakes with a little bit of butter and some cheddar cheese, made like a breadcrumb topping for the top of the grits. Steaks are in there finishing off. Check on the broccoli. It's getting there. There is the grits with the cornflake cheesy crust.
All right, so we have our deer tenderloin with our caramelized onions, broccoli, corn grits with the topping that Zad made for it. Couple things. So the deer tenderloin, we are hoping that we can hunt this property. Probably not this year. We just didn't get our ducks in a row in time. But hopefully soon. We have 13 acres now, and a good portion of it is wooded. So we're hoping that we can hunt ourselves. This deer we actually got from a friend last year because he didn't have any space for it and called us and asked if we wanted it. So we are getting low on deer, and we would love to have some more in the freezer. The broccoli I showed in the Sam's Club video. So that's another thing that I did not, preserve this year was broccoli. And I mentioned this in another video, I really need to take the time to vacuum seal it because I feel like it's probably the best way. If anybody has any other thoughts on that, I've always just thrown the Ziploc. It always gets freezer burnt and it's just never that great. There's not really any great ways to like can it. Yeah, we have not been successful with growing it. So I'll probably wind up buying it from some local farmers. I might try some more next year. I mean, my garden should be bigger next year, so I might have some space to try and experiment and see if we can do it, or try to start some early in the greenhouse or something. But yeah, we freeze-dried it. Freeze-dried's okay. It's not our favorite. I'd probably throw it in soup. I wouldn't eat it as a side, personally. It's just not our preference. So anyway, that's what we did for dinner tonight. So I wanted to make a point too, and Zad mentioned this, because at first I was like, I'm not even going to do a video on this. Like, there's not even anything that we really canned in here. But I guess that makes a good point that not every single meal has something in it that we've canned. There are other ways to preserve things. Like, you know, we have our dry goods and like the corn grits and the things like that. And then we have what we have in the freezer, which is a lot of the meat and whatever.
People are always asking, how do you use leftovers?
Yeah, people always want to know how we use leftovers. Like, seriously, these corn grits, this is the third meal we've had them with. Now, this week, it was only Zad and I and the littles. Matt and Bud aren't here. They come back tomorrow, which we're very excited about. We definitely miss them when they're not here. So anyway, we always are transforming leftovers. There is never anything that we cook that goes to waste. And I mean, I know never is a strong word, but I would say almost never, unless it's like toddler fodder that landed on the floor. Almost never.
How to use the leftover topping.
The leftover topping, yeah, from Bud's. Zad had mentioned that Bud is cooking through the Dylan Hollis book. So I'll drop Bud's YouTube channel in the description too, because that's been really interesting as he bakes through that book. So I hope this gives you some inspiration. As I've mentioned before, we don't really work with recipes unless maybe we're baking, and even then I feel like I kind of like go off the handle about baking too and do whatever I want, you know, because I sort of have a general concept of what it needs to be. But we want you to be inspired to use the things in your pantry, in your freezer, your fridge, or whatever. So if you have things that you don't know what to do with, let us know in the comments. We are always interested in trying to come up with fun things to do. And here is our final dinner. We are going to go enjoy this, and we'll see you next time.